What's going on, everybody? I am John Stamper and excited to continue this Scopic learning series, which is AI innovations, digital health, and business transformation. And we've had an opportunity through our first couple of episodes to speak with some of the members of the Scopic team. Now we're going to step out a little bit, and we're very honored to have some time with Josh Polster, who is actually a Scopic customer. He has been for about 4 years. So, Josh, it's good to have you. How you doing?
Thanks. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
All right, so a lot of things that I want to cover. I mean, certainly I want to kind of have you share, what your experience has been like with Scopic and all of that. But I'd love to just start, maybe let everybody know who you are. You're doing some really exciting things. I mean, certainly, radiology has been your world for so many years. You work at the Cleveland Clinic and do a lot there, and then you have this exciting company, Mediphany, and so we're going to get into that. But yeah, I'd just love to have you kind of share a little bit about yourself, and then more importantly, kind of what your focus was when you were looking for a software company to work with.
Sure. No, so I'm a radiologist. I'm a radiologist who specializes in bones and joints and other musculoskeletal sorts of injuries and structures. And I've always been somebody who was interested in inventing things. I have several patents and have always done things within my job at the Cleveland Clinic. And at some point, I decided I really would like to focus on some solutions that maybe could become businesses. And actually initially had worked on this idea of creating video radiology reports for patients while I was at the Cleveland Clinic. And then their innovations group said, well, you can go ahead and pursue this on your own. And so we've created a company called Mediphany. And both my business partner and I are radiologists. We're not technical people. So we realized well, we need some help here because doing this manually will be too cumbersome and difficult. We need to be able to do all kinds of tasks we can get into if you'd like. And so we needed to have a partner to help us develop the software that we use to do our service.
And so you came across Scopic, I think you said about 4 years ago, as you all
Yeah.
were mapping this out. And can you share a little bit about what the initial conversations were like? Coming to them, of course, sharing with them your vision, your idea, what you guys wanted to accomplish, and kind of what those some of those early days were like.
Yeah, for sure. I remember the first conversations, and I remember we met with sort of a team of two people. One was sort of a salesperson or a account manager sort of person, and the other was a technical lead in their group, so that they could kind of flesh out what it is we were looking to do, and whether they would be able to handle it. And I can remember that I was impressed by this process because they were very thorough. There was a lot of back and forth about what we were trying to accomplish. And I think for selfish reasons on their perspective, they needed to make sure they're scoping projects correctly.
Yep.
And from my perspective, though, it helped me to understand, number one, what their um, capabilities were, the spectrum of capabilities, but it also provided some feedback that helped me to shape things a little bit better on my side. As a non-technical person, it's always difficult to know what's really possible and what's possible within the reasonable price range and that sort of thing. And they were really helpful about that.
Yeah, as you know, it's one thing to have a great idea, be excited about it, somewhat have a vision of what it'll look like, right? When you build the platform, you build the software, and then making it work and getting it to fruition is a whole other thing. So then talk
Absolutely.
about as you all went through that process and you understood it. Sounds like you were able to communicate to them like what you wanted it to look like, and of course they were able to kind of help frame that out. Then as things moved on, talk a little bit about what that process was like as you were starting to take this vision and turn it into a reality.
Yeah. Um, so I think that we took an approach of let's do an MVP, a minimum viable product, as a starting point, and with the idea that we would develop on top of that in the future. So I remember having conversations about that and trying to determine, let's say, the particular software languages and frameworks that would be used and the sorts of infrastructure we would need, while still like keeping things low cost at the beginning. And then as we achieved a milestone and said, okay, we've got something functional, obviously that would bring out, well, we need something else. We need either new features or we need to have a different process in place. So the way that they worked with that and with me was I would bring something up, and if it was a very minor thing, we maybe that could be just fixed on the fly. But in general, we would have pretty well thought through statements of work where we would talk about the project, even to some detail, to truly try to understand, flesh it out, have back and forth stuff, and then have estimates made. Estimates were made sort of like, well, pessimistically, it could be as much as this, optimistically, as little as this, and hopefully it's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
And and then we would just, flesh it out further until we felt comfortable with going ahead. And in this way, we kind of modularly have built our software platform.
Mhm. So speaking of the software platform itself, could you touch on a little bit the problem that you're solving, right, with the company? And I think more importantly, how you are using the platform that they helped you build to solve that problem for, current
Sure.
customers and of course, future customers.
So the fundamental problem is explaining complicated medical imaging to people who are less comfortable than a radiologist
Mhm.
as well as possible, because it's confusing to people. It's not only confusing for patients who are getting their reports, let's say their radiology reports in a text form through their electronic medical record, but even doctors, especially like primary care doctors who might not be as familiar with some of the technical jargon that we're talking about, it can be confusing. And so we felt that fundamentally the solution to that is to use video. Video is a way that essentially it's like me talking to you right now, where I can point to things and explain things in a way that is difficult with words.
Mhm.
Um, so the software platform helps us with that, both from the video generation process, which includes not only like screen capture technology, but also allows us to um, sort of seamlessly add things that are repetitive into what we're making. So combining custom made content with uh, pre-made content is very helpful.
Mhm.
We also have a library of materials that are things like illustrations, animations, videos, other imaging studies that are incorporated into our software. So we can pretty easily search for and bring those into the videos that we're making. You can imagine a medical illustration, for instance, being very helpful if it's done at the appropriate level to having
Right.
someone understand what you're talking about in an imaging study where they might not be as familiar with what that looks like.
Mhm.
And then, we've more recently got into a process where we're generating on top of the video reports, also text reports. And we've been using AI for that, which Scopic has helped us with. And that is a way of taking what we're speaking in the video and creating a structured, kind of more standard looking radiology report for other reasons, which has been a very big time saver for us.
So the reports you're providing in most cases for the patients themselves, is that typically who you're providing them for, or
Typic-
someone in their sphere, or
Typically, those written reports are more in the legal sphere.
gotcha. Okay.
You
Okay. Okay, got it. And so at first blush, you get out in the marketplace, you start to provide those. What was the initial feedback, from those that you were serving in the legal space, being able to see it, not only see it, I should say, but then understand it.
Yeah, no, hugely impactful. Really positive feedback. I was not going into this very familiar with the legal use cases for this. For instance, let's say in workers' compensation law. But a lot of these things have to do with this team has an expert, this team has an expert, they say different things, and some adjudicator needs to make a decision about kind of who's right.
Mhm.
And what we found is that by showing it, the adjudicator can see with their own eyes what the truth is, or what seems to, whether we're making sense or not, because they're not medically trained people. They have no way to judge who's right and who's wrong, other
Right.
than perhaps like whose CV they prefer. So it's a powerful way to get people to see with their own eyes what's going on and to make them understand.
I think it's exciting because I feel like with what you all have built, is really a foundation for what we're going to see in the future, right? Especially in the healthcare space. I know in dentistry, we're seeing a lot of this where with some of the AI tools, the dental practice being able to show the patients what's going on in their mouth so that they can, most importantly, understand what's being, recommended. And I feel the same way here with what you've done, right? I mean, I think in that mysterious world of a handful of people knowing and understanding what that looks like or understands what it means on the radiology report. And then, like you mentioned, it sounds like it brings other people in,
Yeah,
some of these different decision makers and all of that. Some of them to a surprise. It sounds like markets that maybe you
yeah,
wouldn't have even thought about when you built it.
absolutely. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
think that's a great description of what we're seeing.
And so let's talk about the process of you sharing with them like what you wanted the end product to look like on the other side of the MVP. As that went along, were there additional things that you needed to be involved in, or did you kind of have the confidence that once you kind of laid that out with them, like you felt like they understood what needed to happen, and then they were able to make it a reality? I mean, I know it's always a dynamic process. I feel all software is kind of like everything's a first draft; it's always evolving, right?
Yes.
But what was that like?
Yeah, I hope I'm going to answer your question the way what you're looking for, and tell me if I'm not. But um, so I feel like I've in my other role, my role at Cleveland Clinic, for example, I have enough experience with some software development and working with things that even though I'm not a technical person, I kind of can, picture what it should look like and
Right.
picture functionality that's feasible to do. So what I tend to like to draw or make mock-ups on PowerPoint and things like that.
Mhm.
So a lot of times I will make a description or even a video where I'm going through some kind of crude, bad looking PowerPoint that I've made, or even a crude, almost crayon-like drawing
Yeah.
to show them, to show Scopic, which I think they appreciate. They take that input, and then the process that we typically have been going through and that I really like is when they have designers on the team, let's say, who use Figma,
Mhm.
a design tool, software tool, to mock up what we're looking at. And actually, the most recent thing we're working on with them, they made a clickable prototype with Figma.
Mhm.
So we could actually mimic the functionality of software with a relatively low cost mock-up as a way to test user interest, to show that to people and say, like, let's click through this. I can explain this complicated software much more easily that way. People get the idea more easily, and then they provide feedback, and we can provide Scopic with the feedback. We needed to do this or that instead
Mhm.
of what you were doing right now, and rapidly iterate on the design and the kind of the clickable functionality. Then it also helps inform them better about what the software is going to look like in the end and the functions that are needed, so that the cost estimate for developing the actual software will be more accurate. And that's the kind of process we go through, so that we do that. And we talk about it, we have back and forth, they make an estimate, and they start working on it. And as things come up, they also have internal QA testers who do a very good and very thorough job, so that by the time I'm testing stuff in its whatever you call it, beta format or something,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's pretty close, and
Yeah.
and it's a good process.
I love that process of at least being able to take something like you mentioned, from the Figma perspective, and then getting that out to some of the users. Because as you know, Josh, it's when I look back, Scopic would know this much more than I do, and you as well. The days of creating these software platforms and not being able to do a lot of testing, or at least kind of have most of the framework built before you can do those things. And I feel like users now, because so much of our society is at least more inclined to understanding and utilizing technology and mobile and computers and all of that, that you probably get really good feedback, at least on the user experience, so that you have the confidence that when they go in, as do they, to finish it up and make sure that the final product is going to be what everybody wants. Which, yeah,
Yep.
that's I like that a lot. Because it's interesting. I think about different companies out there, depending on the scope of what they want to have built. There's obviously a lot of different tools out there, different websites and different tools that people can pull together. But of course, if you're going to do it by yourself and you have some more complicated pieces, that's where they come in. And that's actually the next thing I wanted to ask you was, uh, what do you feel like were some of the more custom pieces of what you did that they helped with that maybe would be different than just, creating something that was much maybe simpler?
Well, I mean, I think it's really, most software you can sort of break down into different smaller component pieces that you might not think on their own are innovative, or maybe you think there are solutions for those things outside of in the real world and commercially available products. But I think that I would say the incorporation, for instance, of our library of materials with the video and the ability to insert and create on the fly a custom video for someone that's not just us talking like on a Zoom call, but dynamically able to bring in things and make suggestions and fit them in on the fly. I feel like that was a unique thing. And I think that the AI reporting thing is definitely a unique thing that's been very helpful.
Yeah, we had a conversation about AI, and as you know so well, there's so many people out there now, whether they have existing software platforms or they're building new ones, that whatever their business case is, they're recognizing or wanting to build AI into it. And so that's a whole other component. What's that been like? Like, what was that process like, making the decision to know that you could build AI? What part of that work did you need to do as far as like the information that was going to need to be indexed, into the learning model, and what part of the process did they really help with?
I would say that I mean our particular component is not like a fundamental language model creation or anything like that. So we're utilizing large language models. I have some familiarity with them. I think that what they were really helpful in doing is, of course, number one, setting up and integrating a flow of data that would allow interaction between what we're making, custom made video stuff, into getting data into a large language model, processing and bringing it back in the form that we want. And then sort of a prompt engineering and testing process that was pretty thorough and pretty rigorous. I mean, they had some standards in place for, let's say, accuracy or precision of the information that was coming back as an expected threshold that we wanted to meet, that they wanted to meet, that we wanted to meet. And
Right.
that's something I hadn't encountered before, like the sort of the um, rigor, I guess, of some data driven assessment of the quality of the large language model feedback.
Yeah. To make sure that it's correct or as
Yeah,
close as it could
yeah,
be. Yeah,
yeah,
totally get it. I mean, because as you know, right now, I mean, I think so many people are excited about AI and in so many different ways. The
yeah.
question of so much of it, you hear this. I mean, even like in my world in the video space, it's like, some elements of AI, you hear people say sometimes it's not quite there yet. It's getting better
Right.
like every week, every month, every year, but it's not quite there yet. And so love the whole idea of being able to really, test that and be stern about that. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, I think your example is a great one of professionals like yourself that have an idea, know and understand how you could solve a problem for a particular market with your experience in the healthcare space. And I feel like there's going to be more and more of what you're doing. For those companies out there, for anybody that's watching this, you're in the healthcare space and you want to create something custom, what would be some of the things that you learned through your process and working with Scopic that would be helpful for those companies, newer companies, as far as like how to go into it, like things they could do to prepare, like those types of things that you feel like from what you learned would accelerate that process even better?
Sure. Let's see. So I think number one would be just a statement of you can do it, like
Yeah.
it's doable. It is intimidating when you don't have that, knowledge and expertise.
Yeah.
Number two, I would say that there are places like, and Scopic is one of them, that can provide quite a spectrum of services. I mean, it's not just building the thing and then see you later.
Right.
I mean, we actually consider them an extension of our business,
Yeah.
and like almost like they're part of our team. They've helped with a number of aspects. I mean, there's all the stuff we've already talked about design and prototyping and all that. But even marketing, web hosting, um, all these aspects of a business that maybe you don't even think about it, or maybe I just didn't think about enough at first.
Yeah.
but they can offer those things. So being thinking about that you can outsource sort of most roles in a business that you need. And so don't be too intimidated by that. I mean, you there are options out there. You don't have to have all the ability within yourself or even within your partner or business partner to be able to do that. There are resources like Scopic that can help you with that. I guess the
Yeah.
third
Oh yeah.
third thing
Yeah.
I would
Sorry.
just
No.
say, sorry.
No. Go ahead. No. Sorry.
No,
Keep going.
I would just emphasize that that prototyping MVP kind of process. I think that when you are small and you're just starting, you don't want to spend like $1 billion developing something that nobody wants. So the idea of that lower cost design, clickable prototype, show it to users, I think is really good advice to making sure you feel some confidence. Of course, until someone's paying you money, like you still
Right.
have to worry about that, but it gives you some confidence that what you're doing is on the right path.
How was that process? I actually forgot to ask you when we were talking about that introducing it to potential users and things like that. What was the feedback when you went to them? I guess that's the first question. Then second question is that were there a lot of additional changes and updates that needed to be made from maybe the first prototype that went out there? What did that look like for those that you gave it to or had use?
No, not a ton, not a ton of changes, which is good. Now, I think that sometimes some of those things may not come out till people are really using them, but
Yeah.
some, some important things and some important things that lead to usability issues or address usability issues. For instance, in the radiology space, if someone is going to use the tool that we're going to be building out, it needs to be fast. Radiologists are like, they're moving really fast, case to case all day,
Yeah.
and they don't have time for a lot of searching for things. It's got to be in their face, easy to access and get going. So we did make a change in the design regarding the sort of initial launching of this process that we wouldn't have gotten to without having shown it to people first.
Mhm. What was it like, Josh? One of the things that I've been fascinated with Scopic is the fact is that they're all over the world. As a matter of fact, like when I'm having a conversation with them, I never know like if they're going to be in Spain or South America, or it's actually
Right.
been awesome. But what was that like from a customer's perspective to not only experience that? I feel like sometimes, especially here, in our country here in the United States, like, we can kind of have this, these blind spots, right? That like, anything outside of that, it can be challenging to kind of, from a communication standpoint to make sure that you're going to get everything that you want, especially in this high touch world of custom software to make it be what you want. What was that like, that experience?
Yeah, I did not consider that to be an issue. I mean, I think that our time zones in general work out for mornings for me, work,
Yeah.
I guess it's evenings maybe for many of them.
Yeah.
Though that seems to be a good fit for us. Now, if I needed direct contact at 5 p.m. Eastern time in the United States, I'm not sure that that would work out so well necessarily,
Yeah.
but for the purposes of software development, it has not been an issue at all. I mean, we
Yeah.
really were able to get, regular contact initially, of course, through email, but then we frequently schedule video calls like this, and review things in person.
Yeah. Love it. Any final thoughts as we wrap? This has been great. Really appreciate your time, just kind of sharing what your experience has been like. And I'm excited to learn more about your company and all the exciting things that you're doing and watch this journey grow. But yeah, any final thoughts just about the experience with Scopic?
I certainly recommend them. They really have a broad spectrum of services that they can provide to a small company like me, like mine. And for those of your viewers that are watching this, I think that they're definitely a good partner.
Awesome. Well, Josh, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Good luck with the business,
Thank you.
and we look forward to watching the progress.
Thank you so much.
All right, take care.